What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks. And listen, you take 24 hours off from the podcast and all hell breaks loose. There is lots to get through tonight. The Bucks have had a win. They've had a loss. Surgery for Brook Lopez. We're going to hit that right off the top. That's obviously major news. DeMarcus Cousins made his Milwaukee debut. So there is plenty to get to. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see me and hear me on this show daily and also find my work over at ESPN. And joining me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. Today's episode is brought to you by Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibilities. So start now at shopify.com/lockedonnba. That's all lowercase there. As always, I should say, we always thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. And Frank, how about some good news to start the podcast? Yesterday, I was busy. I watched the game on delay, which is why we didn't podcast. We apologize to everyone for that. But you sent me a message in the morning and you said, I think we should call out everyone that has us on the Spotify Wrapped. I don't know if that's possible. This is a half an hour podcast, but the tweets kept coming all through the day. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I think the message I sent you, Frank, was these people are crazy. Look how much time they are spending listening to this podcast. But it's super nice. It really is.
Yeah, I've got the list up. So I hope we don't miss anybody. Oh, first off, we said we'd pick somebody to win the Giannis print a few weeks back.
Everyone's been waiting.
Well, I went into the whenever we did the episode, and I responded back to Brian Kurth, and I asked Brian to send us an email at lockedonbucks@gmail.com. And I don't know if Brian just didn't see it because there's no notification. Because then I was trying to find my comment to Brian
right.
to see if he responded in the thread, and it's impossible. There's at least from maybe I'm being an old man. I can't seem to find an easy way, and at least in the YouTube mobile app, to see when people respond to your comments. So, Brian, if you're listening, watching, if you're on, I don't know if he's on Twitter, but message me on Twitter or shoot us a note, lockedonbucks@gmail.com, and I will make sure you get that Giannis print that I was showing that one night on this show. So shout out to everybody who expressed interest. We'll see if we can maybe do something like that again sometime soon. But yes, as far as people giving us Spotify shout outs, I'm just going to kind of rip through the list real quick. Josie Mars, Josephine, shout out to her, fellow podcaster Josie. Andy Nelson, my guy Andy Nelson, had very nice things to say about us. Bobby Portis fan club. I'm sorry, it's let's see, at Deer Crossin 6. Shout out to him having us number one. Easy E Jan Lien. Easy E had some made a claim for being on the podcast. But then sort of undermined it. Easy E with.
By the way, let me just jump in. We appreciate everyone that listens to the podcast, but I looked at that. We've done about nearly 300 podcasts in the last year. I think he listened to 40. Which, by the way, we're very thankful for anyone that listens, but maybe he uses other platforms. It's a pretty low percentage to demand an appearance on the pod. I just want to say.
Yeah, I mean, well, and our other friend of the pod, Riley at Bucks Thought, also messaged us, and then she just said, yeah, while we're at it, I request to also be on the podcast. So, okay. So yeah, but at the Aqua Cave, also giving us a shout out, Andy Schultz, Ion, saying nice things about to us. Let's see who else. Luke Lorfeld, thanks to Luke. Boogie Believer. Very fitting. We'll talk more about Boogie, certainly in this episode. And I'm trying to see if I missed any others. I think Leslie Moen also gave us a shout out. I think Leslie had I think Leslie's the block. Maybe I don't know. We may need to put a challenge out here. I think Leslie may be the Locked On Bucks super fan of the year. I think she clocked in with 228 episodes, 8,080 minutes. So Leslie, your tolerance of Kane's accent and my stammering is greatly appreciated. I think that was those. So yeah, keep hitting us up with these. Send us on Twitter, add us on Twitter. If we showed up on your Spotify Wrapped playlist. And for those who have no idea what we're talking about, Spotify gives you this sort of recap at the end of each calendar year about what you listen to the most, songs and podcasts and things like that. So shout out to everybody for listening. Okay, we got to talk about basketball because a million things happened.
Yeah, and I will just say, by the way, I personally listen to Apple Podcasts, so we know that there's a lot of people that, listen to different platforms. So shout out to everyone, especially YouTube as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Let's talk basketball. Some bad news to start, but this is probably the biggest news right across the last couple of days here since we last caught up. So Brook Lopez, we've been wondering all season long. There's been no real updates, which, by the way, we've spoken about it and said maybe there's nothing too much to that. Backs are really hard. They can be finicky. This guy's a giant human being. Maybe they were hoping that he was going to get better. They were clearly ramping things up. They weren't. He's had surgery in Los Angeles, I believe, as per the release. Bud spoke after the game tonight, or it might have been pre-game, and he basically said, listen, we hope that he plays this regular season, and we're hopeful that this recovery is going to be swift and things will go to plan. But I think naturally, anytime you have a guy go in for back surgery, it opens up a lot of possibilities here, and it's certainly not ideal. This could be bad news, and obviously it's a massive shame for us, hoping that we were going to see Brook Lopez on the floor potentially in the next month or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, you push that timeline out at least a few months, right? There's 70 days to the trade deadline in early February. So we'll see how much transparency the Bucks provide in the interim about Brook's progress, but I would imagine we're going to hear a whole lot of nothing. I mean, we'll have to see if we even hear what specific type of surgery this was, because it's not like there's only one type of back surgery. Like, what exactly was it?
Mike Tyson, what's your injury? I broke my back. Spinal.
Doctor said I need a backiotomy. If you're a half-baked fan. So yeah, I think we'll have to see. I think, you mentioned Bud's comments before the game this afternoon. Zach Lowe on NBA Today. I was about to call it The Jump, but NBA Today on ESPN said that there is, I believe, optimism that he'll be able to return before the end of the regular season and be, available by the playoffs. But Zach, I think, added the obvious caveat that backs are weird and strange and difficult to figure out, and we'll see how his reacts. And I think, I obviously we've talked a lot about sort of the lack of communication about what has been going on. I think, obviously the past couple weeks, Brook going from, telling Shams that he has a target date in mind to, suddenly sort of disappearing and having surgery that may cost him the season. I would say that's a pretty obvious indicator that the Bucks all this time really didn't know when he was going to come back, and whatever they would have said was the likely timeline when this started was not going to be accurate. And that's exactly why they probably didn't want to provide a timeline, because they didn't know and they didn't want to be wrong. And, I think, again, I'll just go ahead and guess that whatever they thought was going to happen turned out to be incorrect. And obviously his back did not respond the way that it was hoped. And again, was he ramped up incorrectly? Did, whatever it was. I mean, 2 days ago, Bud was saying he hadn't had a setback. Okay, well, that was bullshit. So again, I understand frustration from a lot of fans just at, the team sort of basically withholding information about what's going on with a really key player. But again, I think to some extent it is reflective of the fact that they haven't really known what was going to happen next. And unfortunately, we don't know. I don't think they know what's really going to happen next from here on out either. So we're going to have to deal with a lot of ambiguity. And I think one of the, the best indicator of what's going on is probably going to be what the Bucks do by the trade deadline, because we'll talk about Boogie, we'll talk about Brook's impact. I would say if they make another move for a big man around the around the trade deadline, that would be, to me, the best indicator that things are not going as well as they hoped with Brook's recovery. But all of that's still, more than 2 months away. And obviously by that time you hope that for one, Brook is feeling a lot better and hopefully getting closer to a return to the court. But if not, at a minimum, you hope that you at least have some clarity around kind of what happens next, and if you do have to make plans to move forward without Brook Lopez. But let me ask you this. Thank God the Bucks won a championship last year, because if this happened without a championship, hearing that Brook Lopez might be lost for the season, I would be in a really, really bad place. Given that he's been gone for 6 weeks already, it feels like I've been eased into this possibility for some time. It was like, yeah, it kind of felt like that was, the Boogie signing happens. I said that felt like a bad omen. Some people said I was being doom and gloom, but I don't know. I felt like emotionally prepared for what happened today in a weird way because of the gradual way this has happened. But at the end of the day, how do you foresee this playing into the Bucks' title chances? And again, we don't know for sure if he'll be back, but how big of a deal is this? How concerned do you think we should be at Kane when you kind of look at the big picture of this?
It's funny because we've gone through, and you certainly have over the last few weeks, and you've gone into some of the numbers at how lineups look and how bigs look without Giannis on the floor. Brook Lopez was clearly different because he was a very intelligent defensive big. But, I honestly think one of the advantages, and we've seen this time and time again in the postseason of having Brook Lopez, it wasn't just what he did defensively. He was this offensive X factor that just had monster games in the postseason going back as well. So the reality is, unless you're trading something pretty damn valuable that I think most people would consider would be a pretty important piece, you're not going to get Brook Lopez. So then the question becomes, can you still cover that and be a team that can win a championship? Honestly, right now, I don't know. We were discussing it in the DM, and I said, well, it's very hard to come up with trade targets right now. And it's obviously very natural to go into the trade table straight away and say, well, who are they trading for? Who can they trade for? I don't know. These things generally seem to play out as they come. I'm perhaps maybe a little naive about it with the whole DeMarcus Cousins thing, because I still think, and I don't know. This was so soon that maybe they did know, or maybe this was like, let's get a guy. But I'm still not convinced that they signed Boogie thinking that he was going to be the answer moving forward. I think they just still needed a big. Like that's kind of how I'm viewing it. So even though this came in the timing, and I've seen it a lot, everyone's like, well, that makes sense. I knew this was coming. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit silly. I don't necessarily believe that, but it's a massive loss. There's no doubt about that. And we're going to know moving forward. And as you said, the fact that the trade deadline's still 2 months away is kind of nice to have that buffer before they make some sort of big decision. But we've seen from John Horst in the past, he's not just going to sit on his hands. He's going to do something if they feel that they need moving forward. I want to ask you about Boogie. Just before I do, I'm supposed to make some sort of cha-ching sound, but I don't feel all that comfortable, even though I just did it. So whatever. Anyway, I love that sound. It's a sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. In case you don't know, Shopify is a complete commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using Shopify POS, our point-of-sale app, and accompanying hardware. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify helps you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. So just go to shopify.com/lockedonnba, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba right now. That's shopify.com/lockedonnba. I've mentioned this before, but I found out yesterday there was a subscription platform for TV shows, and you've probably got every subscription platform under the sun, Frank, so maybe this doesn't apply to you. But for me, I like to mix and match. Sometimes I'll be creating a million different fake emails to try and get a free trial or something like that. I'm a real tight ass like that. But I know that it's so easy to forget about these subscriptions you have, and Truebill is here to help. They will stop you from paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. So just don't fall for the subscription scam. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. So again, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day. Make sure you go across and check out our friends over at Locked On Packers. In the meantime, they can be your second listen of every single day. I did see a few Spotify Wrapped where Locked On Packers was below Locked On Bucks. That's what we like to see. We want all the Locked On podcasts to be doing well, but Locked On Bucks certainly the best. We could go on about Brook Lopez forever, Frank, but we've got too much to get to, so I'm going to press forward. Yesterday, I mentioned that I watched this game on delay, so I had no idea what the score was. We'd already come to an agreement that we weren't going to podcast. And then what do I see in my DMs? Frank popping up. You sure you don't want to podcast tonight with a little smiley face? And I instantly knew Giannis had done something crazy. So we're not going to break down these games a lot, but I really just want to get to the end here. 40 points for Giannis. Can we just talk about that final play, which is like the bull at a gate stampede downhill towards the basket play? I know you guys, and Eric wrote about it, but you guys were discussing, had we seen this before? When have they tried that? And just comparing some late game plays. Can you just describe that in your eyes, or what you think about that whole entire situation and where this sort of lies in the great late game plays for Giannis? Because by the way, that finish was just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think when you look at some different angles, you kind of appreciate. I mean, PJ Washington isn't like going to be confused for an all defensive player, but he's pretty mobile, and I mean he actually put a very good challenge when you kind of see it's like the reverse angle from behind, and how much Giannis had to contort his body to get the shot off like he did, and to put it basically off the like padding there on the bottom of the basket and still angle it in, obviously, is just really, really impressive. And I think it was interesting. I mean, I saw a number of comments. I mean, I think the obvious play to think about is the shot that he missed from mid range in Phoenix last year. And I think the other comment that and I mean, I can't thinking back to that game. I feel like there was so much discussion after that game about whether Giannis should have pulled up for that jump shot, because it was, a similar situation where he's coming from the middle of the, basically coming from midcourt, getting ahead of steam, and then he pulled up for the jump shot. And there was so much discussion about what could he have gotten to the basket, blah, blah. But I think, I mean, and the other comments about like, oh, they didn't pull the Chris play where Chris Middleton ends up with a difficult 3-point shot in the near corner. I mean, the most important difference between kind of a lot of the late game actions the Bucks have run in the past and what we saw today is that, I mean, they had almost 6 seconds, right? So I mean, that's just like there's a whole different subset of plays you can run with 6 seconds versus 2 seconds, 3 seconds, where maybe you can take a dribble or two with 2 or 3 seconds, but I don't think. I mean, you look at the clock, right? There was 2 seconds still left on the clock when Giannis scored. So he did that in about 4 seconds, right? That's really fast and impressive, but there's still a number of things that have to happen. And, again, I think the finish was not easy. It required, Giannis being Giannis. So, again, I don't think the Bucks like suddenly discovered some magical late game play, because you can't run that play with 2 seconds left on the clock. But with 6 seconds left, again, you can actually get multiple players involved. And I thought it was, a really interesting design. Chris Middleton being the inbound guy, another thing that you would never do if there was only, 2 seconds on the clock, just because you want Chris being available to catch the ball, not be, in that situation, it's you have enough time for him to inbound and then go be part of the action and potentially get an open shot. So yeah, I mean, a great player make a great play, and a pretty wild, what was it, 8 seconds or 7 seconds or so of the game, right? With LaMelo hitting that catch and shoot really difficult 3 on the left wing to tie it. Giannis coming back with the finish to win it, and Miles Bridges very nearly hitting that prayer of a shot, which, I mean, let's be honest, with the way that the Hornets shot the ball, especially in the first half of that game, it felt like, I don't know, it seemed fitting that he very nearly hit that shot, because it just felt like the Hornets were hitting shots all game long. And man, I compared it on Twitter to the Minnesota game, because it just felt like the Bucks, they dig that early hole. In the Minnesota game, it was a lot of like D'Angelo Russell just hitting a ton of shots. In this game, it was, I'd say, a more equal effort of just seemingly everybody. It felt like hitting jump shots, hitting 3-pointers, and it was just like, when is this going to stop, right? I think they were 14 out of 29 at halftime. Then they came out and hit a three right to start the second half, and it just felt like, man, are the Bucks going to be able to get over this hump? And obviously in the Minnesota game, they just never did, right? I mean, you give up, expend a bunch of effort to try to get back in the game. And sometimes if you don't then make that breakthrough, then, again, you just play from behind all game. But thankfully they were able to get ahead there, I think late in the third. George Hill made a couple plays. And then in the fourth quarter, I think, Chris Middleton, interesting. Middleton kind of had similar games in terms of his shooting tonight and yesterday, in terms of just being really, really cold to start the game. I think he was 2 out of 8 last night in the first half. I think he was 2 out of 9 tonight. But kind of worked his way back into the game and did miss a couple shots kind of midway through the fourth quarter against the Hornets. But then obviously, a huge shot late there off a Giannis kick out. And then, ultimately they kind of just did enough. And like the Minnesota game, it was just a matter of the defense not really being able to do anything with Giannis. I think he had 14 in the fourth quarter out of his 40 points. He's the 9 assists. Other than the turnovers, 6. It was, again, sort of vintage Giannis against a Hornets team that likes to play small. This was certainly not a game where you're going to feel Brook Lopez's absence. And to be honest, I thought this was kind of a tricky game for Boogie to make his debut, just because the Hornets, they don't have Mason Plumlee right now. They were starting Nick Richards, but obviously,
by the way, that's a fake basketball player.
Yeah, I know, doesn't it? It feels like that feels like the name of like a guy that I went to high school with, but like is the only guy who I don't remember. And it's just like, oh, Nick Richards. He was in your graduating class. I was like, what? Yeah, he went to your. And I was like, what? But yeah, Nick Richards, totally. I saw that name in the box score when I looked before the game, like to see who played in their last game, and I was like, Nick Richards. Do not know that human being.
No. I actually had not heard of him. I feel like I'm across 97% of the players in the NBA, but you get caught out from time to time. I still remember years and years ago now, I went to a game at the BC, and I remember it specifically because it was Giannis bobblehead night. So it was Bucks in Miami. We flew in to collect this Giannis bobblehead, and Rodney McGruder was starting for Miami. And I said, there's no chance in hell this name is real. Someone's playing a trick. Anyway, he's obviously been around.
He had some moments too. He wasn't just like a total random flash in the pan type guy either.
No, absolutely. Let's get to Boogie. But before we do, you mentioned the fact that LaMelo Ball went off, and I was watching this game and I said, well, this is like, of course, this is the case. I know the Bucks have had plenty of wins against the Hornets over the years, but there's always a point guard that kills them. Kemba Walker absolutely killed them time after time. LaMelo Ball had a massive game last year when they beat the Bucks. Obviously, he was big last night banging those threes. So if you are a bettor, then always bet the over on the threes for Charlotte Hornets against the Bucks. But do it at betonline.ag, of course, your number one spot for all the sports action this season. You can head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC. They've even got Vegas casino games as well. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. So just quickly before, I want to make sure this isn't something I'm making up in my head before we get to Boogie Cousins. So there was a foul early in the Charlotte game where PJ Washington kind of chopped the arms of Giannis, and Giannis looked like he quickly snapped his head to look back at him. I'm not making up some sort of beef between PJ Washington and Giannis, am I? There's been something in the past. Can you remember that?
I don't know. I mean, Miles Bridges and Giannis were trying to dunk on each other all night, and Bridges got him once on, actually, it was a play very similar to the sunblock, Ayton block play where Giannis basically had to blindly go back and try to find the alley-oop. And in this case, Bridges was able to catch it and put it in before Giannis could react. But yeah, there were a number of possessions where it looked like Giannis was very intent on just dunking all over him. And Bridges had that one play where he wanted to go up, and Giannis challenged him and blocked it, but then it bounced weirdly up off the rim and in. And it seemed almost like Bridges gave him a look, and it's just yeah, dude, he blocked your shot and it just trickled somehow off backboard and rim. I don't think you can claim anything on that, even if you did get 2 points out of it. But yeah, it's interesting because they clearly just didn't have enough size to contend with Giannis tonight. But they're a team that it's kind of weird. I think James Borrego is a good coach. I think at times they've in the past couple of years they've had games where they've actually shown a lot of bodies at Giannis and kind of frustrated him at times. But then he's also had just like some monster games against the Hornets where they just haven't had any answer for him. So obviously last night was much more of the latter. And again, down the stretch, man, I would say the officiating did not necessarily distinguish itself. There was a lot of focus on the referees throughout that game, and I think probably a lot more impact from the officials than I think any of us would have liked. But I think you always worry, especially when you're trying to come back. You always worry if you get too wrapped up in officials and frustration and getting mad at the officials that you kind of lose your focus and let your guard up and not focus on the game itself. But thankfully, obviously, the Bucks were able to kind of battle through that. Giannis got that offensive foul call, which I don't think was that bad of a call. I mean, again, like that at the point it was late in the game, I think it was against Bridges, where he got the ball baseline, kind of turned into him, got a little bit high on Bridges, and then he did finish, but it didn't count. Again, would have preferred that just be kind of a no call at that stage. But yeah, this was obviously a game where I'd say a lot of the in-game tweeting seemed to revolve around frustration with the officials, and they were struggling, I think, to sort of keep control of the game. Just not in terms of like there's going to be a fight or anything like that, but in terms of just the frustration levels from especially the Bucks, obviously throughout the night was pretty high.
All right, we are. Predictably, we said this was going to be a busy podcast, but let's get to Boogie Cousins. Look, he does look like he's in good shape. That's the number one thing, and we did mention that the other night on the pod that with all the injuries he's had, it makes sense that he's dropped a little bit of weight, but he certainly came in looking like he's in good shape. What was your opening impressions from Boogie? Again, limited time, but against a team where I know you tweeted about it, there was some situations where you're like, okay, there's going to be lineups, particularly when opposition teams go small, where he's going to be compromised a little bit, but on the offensive end, he still has that ability to bully a defender, get to the paint, lay it in. He hit a corner three. What do you think from Boogie for his opening game?
Yeah, I mean, I think for an opening game in particular, it was, an encouraging start. I mean, I think the most important stat, I mean, again, we don't like to get to index too much on single game plus minus, but I think with Boogie in particular, the concern is just, can you be effective when he's on the floor for, again, over the course of many games, and especially then when you get to the playoffs. And I think, again, even if he's able to put up some points, we know last year he put up, pretty good per minute stats throughout the season. I mean, over 20 points per 36 minutes, lots of rebounds. But, can you do that in ways where you're able to defend and score at a high enough level to win games? And, being +9 in 15 minutes, I think +9 was a game high for the Bucks. I thought that was obviously really encouraging that he was able to get in there, able to actually, I think, do things that helped the team. I thought his passing was good. He had a couple plays. You had one on Oubre, and then a tricky one from the left baseline in the second half where he put the ball on the floor. And again, it's just very subtle things. Like he's just a guy who is as big as he is. His ability to use his body in ways where he's not just trampling people and getting offensive fouls, but he's actually able to get to his spots and use that size, and just little guys don't have a chance against him. I thought that was nice to see. And then the big 3-pointer in the second half as well was obviously a nice play. He makes an unselfish pass to Grayson Allen, who then immediately drives and kicks back to Boogie for that corner three. I think it was early in the fourth quarter to I think that gave them the lead when it was kind of going back and forth. So that was encouraging to see. I think the concern, again, he's new to the system. He's still trying to figure out how to play with all these guys. There were I remember two specific moments where he got kind of caught in no man's land defensively in pick and roll. On one of them, Drew Holiday was able to recover and actually block a shot, so it didn't really end up hurting the Bucks. But that's obviously the big concern, is just is he going to be able to be a guy that teams take advantage of? But they're going to have to obviously zone drop generally with him, and well, with Brook Lopez out, he's really the only guy on the team that you want to play that sort of defense, which ironically is what I think the Bucks has been their bread and butter, that kind of very conservative type of zone drop. So we'll be interested to see how he adapts to that, and can they get him to be effective at least in short bursts. That was what Charles Mockler said to you the other day when you were talking about, what's the best way to use Boogie, I think that was one of the obvious things that he brought up, is just make sure it's short bursts. Don't expect him to be out there for really long stretches, because he's going to get winded, and that's obviously when, especially defensively, you worry about some of the mismatch stuff kind of coming back to hurt you. So look, one practice to come in, 7 points on 5 shots, 4 rebounds, an assist, a steal, +9. I mean, absolutely take that 10 times out of 10. Really, understand. I certainly understand why he didn't play tonight in Toronto. Unfortunate with Giannis, dealing with that bothersome calf, that you're missing both those guys on the second night of a back-to-back, and really only have Bobby as your only sort of regular rotation big that's available. They brought Sandro back to kind of help fill the void a little bit, but yeah, obviously, will be interesting to see kind of how he continues to adapt. And I don't, again, I'm not going to say like, oh, now he's going to have to be a 20 to 25 minute guy, because he's going to have to replace, Brook, as you were alluding to. I think this is a 6-week audition to see, can he be kind of a short burst, 10 to 15 minute rotation guy, and then we'll kind of see where you go from there. And I think certainly Brook's prognosis will be an important part of whether Boogie does, end up staying on this team for the rest of the season. But certainly, hey, that it would be great if he can kind of recapture some of the stuff that made him obviously such a high level player before the injuries. And again, he doesn't have to be that guy. He doesn't have to be that guy, but can he be something close to that guy in short bursts and give you a shot in the arm? Hopefully. And again, I think defensively, just being a huge human being with good length, that's actually can be pretty valuable, especially in the regular season, kind of on a just night to night basis. So we'll see. I'll be very curious to see sort of just, generally like what the ledger looks like for his offense and defense, how he's impacting the game.
Yeah, so it feels like we've kind of buried this news that Giannis didn't play in the game against Toronto, and we're not going to break it down too much. The one thing I will say, Pat Connaughton, we've spoke, he's been so clutch. He had the chance. It was a go-ahead corner 3. I just felt like it was going in. It didn't go out. It was a weird sort of finish to this game on a back-to-back. The Bucks didn't quite get over the line, but no Giannis. Obviously, as you mentioned, there was no DeMarcus Cousins. We know there's no Shemi Ojale. We know there's no Brook Lopez. So again, the Bucks found themselves super short-handed in the big man department. Which is kind of ironic considering that's kind of what we were talking about with that in Boogie Cousins there. But as far as the calf goes, Giannis apparently felt it in the warm-up. So Bud said they hope that it's nothing too serious and it's on the minor end, but keeping in mind they play Miami in a couple of days. Miami without Bam Adebayo for an extended period of time. The Bucks do have the Heat twice in the next week or so. It's around there. I don't have the schedule up in front of me, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they're not going to take a chance with Giannis, that's for sure, particularly with a soft tissue injury. We know he's miraculous in the way he's able to recover from some injuries, but we'll wait and see with this one, particularly being a muscle injury with the calf.
Yeah, I mean, and I saw some, pictures of some people that, had apparently come a long ways to see Giannis play tonight. Please, if you are going to make a trip to see Giannis play basketball somewhere, please do not make it a road game on the second night of a back-to-back, because you're just inviting potentials for things like this. I think the game was it the game in Boston that he missed early in the season? I think was that a back-to-back too? Might have been. And obviously we've seen them, even if he's not, kind of facing a really bothersome injury, those are the games where typically he's going to get rested, is the road game on the second night of a back-to-back. So yeah, I mean, obviously you hope there's nothing much there, but stay tuned. I think Bud kind of danced around it a little bit. I think didn't seem to be very concerned.
Shocking. I am surprised.
Yeah, but obviously him being a late scratch, it's not like he left the last game right, and it's been a clear problem. So we'll see. Obviously, you'd love to see him back for the game on Saturday night and to be at full strength or close to full strength, relatively speaking, right? We're just sort of assuming, obviously, Brook and Dante now being out for some time, that they're not even really part of the equation for the time being. But especially after that game early in the season in Miami, yeah, you'd like to pay that back a little bit. And after yesterday's game, what the Bucks were a game and a half out of first in the East, which is kind of wild. Tonight they dropped down a little bit, obviously with the loss in Toronto, but yeah, obviously the big picture should always be the first thing in mind, and you're not going to rush Giannis back just to get have him play one game, but we'll see. Cross our fingers that that really is just a little thing that they kept him out for very precautionary reasons today.
Look, if I'm looking around the league and I'm seeing all these guys that are out injured and everything that's going on around the league, yeah, if he has to miss a game from time to time, then just do what you need to do. As you said, the Bucks have all of a sudden climbed themselves back up towards the top of the East. So take it easy. It's a long season. Hopefully he's fine. Hopefully everyone can come back and have a quick recovery here. But tomorrow, weekend pod, Lisa Byington, who, by the way, I was watching this game tonight, and I was thinking to myself, what is wrong with Lisa scheduling this podcast the night after going on a back-to-back, traveling on the road, going to Toronto, coming back to Milwaukee? But anyway, Lisa's going to be on the show for the first time, which is going to be a lot of fun. She's been awesome on the broadcast. I think still trying to figure out what the hell Marcus is actually going on about half the time, but those two have been awesome together. It's been a lot of fun. So it'll be cool to have Lisa on. If you do have any questions or whatever you want to fling her way, you can hit us up on Twitter or jump on the YouTube comments as well. And make sure you also check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling as well. The Locked On Bets podcast is good fun. Frank,
can we just have one final moment? I mean, I tweeted about it. What a fun! I mean, it stinks because the Brook injury on Thursday, and then kind of that womp womp, shorthanded loss in Toronto kind of takes some of the edge off. But I mean, that was a great game on Wednesday against the Hornets, and terrific performance from Giannis. He hit, I think, another one of those turning to his left shoulder fadeaways, which I think people might remember. He hit two of those in short succession in Denver from around the foul line, then hit a couple more the other night. And I was kind of tweeting about we're all used to him taking that turning baseline from the left block, so he's basically turning to his right side. That's like the natural way typically for right-handed shots to shoot a turnaround, because you don't have to really get your whole body square in order to get that shot off. Doing it the other way, Chris Middleton can do that because Chris Middleton's just an awesome shooter and great at those sorts of mid-range turnarounds. But Giannis now doing this in short succession from the opposite side. We've seen him, I don't know, say that he's very comfortable shooting the fadeaway from the opposite side, but he certainly has gone to it a lot more than he has in previous years. Has gotten, I'd say, okay at it. I think he sort of predetermines to go for it a little too much. Like, it's not fully a counter move so much as like he just sort of catches it and just like, all right, I'm just going to go to a turnaround here. But him going the other way, kind of corkscrewing, where you have to turn your whole body basically around in order to get that shot off. I mean, that ain't easy. I think he's up to 43% on mid-range shots this year. So shout out to Giannis, man. He's good at basketball, and it's just so nice to enjoy these regular season games and not have the caveats, not have the qualifiers, and just being able to say, like, that dude's an NBA champ, he's a finals MVP, and what a joy just watching this guy night to night play basketball when he's not injured, obviously. But what a privilege it is as a fan that we get to watch this guy night in and night out. And he then gives us these delightful press conferences on the side, just as a little cherry on top. So shout out to Giannis. Appreciate the greatness.
Yeah, I mean, his on-court performances continues to go to new levels. His off-court performances are just, it's skyrocketing, his entertainment value. He's always been a funny guy, but he is next level right now. He has never felt more comfortable in front of the camera, it feels like, and he's putting on an absolute show, which is great.
Are you an Oreo dunker, Kane? I assume they have Oreo.
I don't really eat Oreos. No.
Do they have them in Australia? I assume, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we would get the double stuff sometimes. I'm like a double stuff. I don't even know what the point of a regular Oreo when you have double stuffs available. So, yeah, I'm a double stuff guy, and I go long dip with milk. Take a bite, eat half of it, and then chew, and then I'll just eat the second half and then wash it down with milk. That's my Oreo dipping strategy. So I guess if I ever meet Giannis, I can share with him my Oreo dipping strategy. I feel pretty good about it, but To each their own. Enjoy your orders the way you want to enjoy them.
Well, being Australian, obviously Tim Tams are a big thing, and people always like, bringing up Tim Tams, which for those that don't know is just like a chocolate biscuit. But someone tweeted at me, I also don't eat Tim Tams. I don't eat much, chocolate at all. Anyway, someone tweeted at me and said, you bite each end of the Tim Tam and you can drink your milk through the biscuit, and it's like a chocolatey milk. I don't know. It's kind of crazy shit. But anyway, apparently that's what people do. So shout out to the Tim Tam fans out there as well. I think Daly was a Tim Tam fan, so good for those guys. Similar.
I mean, you're just a Built Bar loyalist. Like if it ain't a Built Bar, like you're not gonna. That's your snack. So
yeah, it's a fact. It's a fact. I'm about to go for a run this afternoon, so I'm gonna have a Built Bar before I go. Probably have a Built Bar when I get back. Some people go to sleep with a bottle of water beside their bed. I go to with a Built Bar, and if I wake up, have a bite, go back to sleep.
You're not even getting paid for this ad read. You're just
Built Bar wasn't even on the show today. It's unbelievable.
You're just talking about your weird lifestyle at this point.
Straight from the heart. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Frank, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, and I really sincerely apologize for not being able to pod after a classic Giannis performance, but hopefully we got more of that next week. Like I said, we're going to pod with Lisa tomorrow. Make sure you check that out over the weekend, and then we'll be back next week as well. So for Frank and myself,